I want you to keep in mind that taxes are not built for perfect beings. Taxes are for humans, right? I know that it's really easy to let that perfectionist side of your mind take over here and get really worried and wrapped up about making that quarterly tax payment, feeling like you're not doing it right and like that makes you a total failure. And I want to be here to say, no, you're doing great. You are a human. This is an estimate. Your purpose here is to reduce the tax bill you owe next year and to stay roughly on top of your 2026 taxes. Welcome to the Sunlight Tax Podcast. In this show, we're talking about taxes, money, and careers for self-employed people who have a big vision for changing the world with their work. I'm your host, Hannah Cole, artist, design nerd, tax pro, author of Taxes for Humans, and the founder of Sunlight Tax. If you're a creative, wellness, or mission-driven entrepreneur who wants to grow your business sustainably, manage your taxes, and build a stash of fuck you money so you can control your time and have a bigger impact with your work, you are in the right place. Hello, beautiful. So happy you're with me today. I wanted to bring you another super practical, tactical episode as we approach that April 15th deadline. So this week, I'm going to be talking to you about how to make your very first estimated quarterly tax payment. Why is that so important? Well, it's due April 15th. I know most of us get so distracted and caught up in the fact that our tax return is due and our tax payment is due April 15th that we forget it's also the day your first quarterly tax payment is due for 2026. So we're going to get all up in that. But first, I just want to give you a little life update. I've been in a reading rut, so if you have read any great books lately and you want to tell me what amazing book you've read, I'd love to hear it. Oh my goodness. There's something about reading a book that I absolutely love by an author at the peak of her powers that makes me feel kind of like disappointed with all the other books that I read. It's not fair to the young and first-time authors of the world. I totally know. But when Lauren Groff or Elizabeth Strout has a new book out, I just know it's going to be so good that nothing satisfies me anymore. So that happened to me. I read Lauren Groff's new book of short stories called Brawler. Oh my God, it's so good. You have to read it. It is so intense. It's so intense. You might not be able to take it, but the stories are just like so compelling, so exciting, and she does not pull any punches. So anyway, that's a little bit about my reading journey. Definitely hit me up if you've read something amazing that you want to share. Definitely. I always want to know. Also, update about Sunlight Tax. I'm moving things to Substack. So I've been noticing that a lot of thinkers, writers that I really respect, Heather Cox Richardson, Robert Reich, have moved over to Substack. Now, it's not a perfect platform. There is an algorithm there. But what I'm noticing is that it is a place that really is currently prioritizing a sense of community and interaction. And it's also a place where longer form content can live happily. People are going to Substack to get away from that like bite-sized, memey information of, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and going for that deeper stuff, that deeper and more thoughtful stuff. It's also a place where a lot of writers are heading. And yeah, I guess I wrote a book, so I get to call myself a writer now. So I've been really wanting to lean into some more thoughtful, long-form writing. That's not always possible in tax season because it's so busy, but it certainly is possible after April 15th. And I wanted to make this move before that so that I can bring my community over and then begin sharing some more thoughtful stuff. I've got definitely some hard-won wisdom about the arts, the business of the arts, the creative world, capitalism and the arts, and also just creative work and entrepreneurship in general. So I'm hoping you will come check out my Substack. If you're already on the Sunlight Tax newsletter, you don't have to do anything. I'm going to bring you over myself. But what you are going to notice starting today is launch day, you are going to notice a bit of a different look. It will have a different look and feel. And my podcast is actually also being hosted on through Substack. You can still listen to it on iTunes or Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. It'll still be there. But just note that if you are a newsletter subscriber, you're going to see that the look changes starting today. All right. Don't worry. You don't have to do anything. But I hope that you enjoy it. I'm really excited to just dig in more to community, to really more thoughtful long form writing. And I'm also excited to offer some more bite sized ways to work with me. I know a lot of you are struggling financially right now. And, AI is doing a lot of things that it used to not be able to do for you. But at the same time, it feels lonely out there and it's hard to make yourself do the actual tasks, like maybe calling your bank and opening an IRA, sitting down to do your monthly bookkeeping. And so I've opened a low cost paid tier in my Substack, which gives you an invitation to come to monthly bookkeeping club. So you don't have to do bookkeeping at Bookkeeping Club, but the idea is you bring money tasks, adulting tasks that you find difficult, that you struggle to actually get done to make yourself do, bring them to Bookkeeping Club, and we have a gentle check-in. And we just sit there with cameras on and just do the work in community. We've had our first few sessions and they're so wonderful. I can't tell you how lovely it has been to just get to share a few words with people there. And everybody was saying, it's quiet. It's not chatting, but you're there and you actually say what you're going to do, which really does make you feel accountable. You're like, oh, shoot. I said out loud to these people that I was going to do this thing, and I'm going to have to say if I did it or not at the end of 90 minutes. It actually does make you do it. And you know what? I do the work too. I'm there actually doing my own work. And for me, I brought a bunch of calendar tasks. I don't know why I'm so allergic to my calendar, but I am. And I made myself put all these workshops, find dates on the calendar. I know it seems minor maybe to you, but for me, it's just something I resist so bad. And I got it done. I was so proud of myself. Even as the host of Bookkeeping Club, I did get some really great work done and it was awesome. So that is something that is available to you as a paid subscriber to my Substack. You can just join my Substack for free. That's totally fine. And I'm really happy to share long form, thoughtful content with you there and a better organized podcast archive. But if you want to join Bookkeeping Club, it's a really cool way to get things done, to not feel alone, to kind of do that stuff that AI can't do for you, right? Actually move the money into your accounts. And of course, the monthly rhythm makes it a natural fit. If bookkeeping is something you struggle with, certainly bringing your monthly bookkeeping is a great idea. So if you're interested in that, you can definitely check out my Substack. It's at substack.com/@sunlighttax. That's my handle. My Substack is called Taxes for Humans. I also have a new founder tier. So if you are, want to show your commitment, be noted as a founding level supporter of the Sunlight Tax Substack, I've got even more benefits. I'm going to be offering monthly workshops, which anyone can join one at a time. But if you join my Substack at the founder level, you get access to all of them for free for a whole year. That is 12 money workshops live that you get to come to for free. It is a gargantuan discount off of the per class price. So that's really cool. You also, of course, get to come to Bookkeeping Club, as well as estimated quarterly tax workshops I do every quarter before the quarterly tax deadline. So those are really awesome and valuable. And we kind of walk through how to calculate your payment and make it so that when you show up to those, you're always going to have your quarterly taxes calculated and paid on time. I think that's really cool. So if you're interested, substack.com/@sunlighttax is where you can find me on Substack. Whether you join for free, whether you join Bookkeeping Club or the founder level, in any way that I can serve you there, I'm really excited to be able to offer just a new way to support you with more interactive sessions, more live sessions, more actually getting stuff done. So many of you have sent me wonderful messages, and I've had these conversations about what would serve you best in this moment in time. And that's what I've learned from you. So this is me trying to work with what you are asking, what you need right now. at the place that you're at right now. So, speaking of quarterly taxes, let's get into it. I want you to leave this episode today feeling like you know what you need to do for April 15th's quarterly tax deadline, and I am going to help make it simple for you. All right, here goes. Okay, so last week on the podcast, I talked about the triple deadline of April 15th. There is a cash crisis that often comes up for people who work for themselves on April 15th because it's the day that your taxes for 2025 are due, no extensions. It's also the day your first estimated quarterly tax payment for 2026 is due. And third, it's also the deadline to fund your IRA to count for 2025. And that's really important because that's your financial security and your future. So if you want to learn about managing that cash crunch, that was last week's episode. Happy to link to that in the show notes. But definitely take a look at that because it's a really important issue that, so much of the work I do is to help people not have that horrifying cash crunch on April 15th. So please listen to it because I want to keep you out of that trouble. This week, I want to dig into one of the pieces there, which is that quarterly tax payment specifically. All right. We're entering a new tax year. So yes, taxes are retroactive and your taxes from last year are due and you're working on them now. But don't forget that we are 3 months into a new tax year. And you also want to make sure that you get on track and stay on track for 2026. Your first quarterly tax payment is your first opportunity to do that. So let me help you make sure you make that payment with confidence and feel really good about it. Okay, here's what I want you to do. When you get your taxes done, right? You get your tax return finished for 2025. What I want you to do is pull that tax return out and you're going to look at line 24. All right, write that down. Line 24 is the line that tells you your total tax for all of 2025. Okay. Why is that so important? Well, one of the rules for paying your estimated quarterly tax payments, in other words, for keeping up with your taxes throughout 2026, one of the baseline safe harbor rules for that is that you are allowed to pay 100% of last year's tax broken up into quarterly payments this year during 2026. And if you do that, you will not owe any penalties or interest. Okay? That's the name of the game. Now, I do want to just a tiny little note for you there. It's 100% if your taxable income is below $150,000. That percentage actually bumps up by 10% to 110% of last year's tax if your taxable income is over $150,000 for the year. So just a small note if you're a higher income taxpayer. Okay. So you're going to pull out that tax return. You're going to look at line 24. And the really easy way to do this is you're just going to take line 24's number and divide it by 4. When you divide it by 4, what you are coming up with is a quarterly tax payment that you can use at every single deadline moving forward through 2026. And if you pay that amount, 100%, if your income's under $150,000 for the year, 110% of that. So you're going to have to bump that number up if you earn over $150,000. But if you pay that amount every single quarter before the deadline, you will not owe any penalties or interest. Okay, real talk. Does that mean you're paying exactly the right amount of tax? No, it doesn't, because there's nothing about that. There's nothing about the way that we can write legislation in this country that guarantees you're going to make the same money in 2026 that you made in 2025. But what it does say is that if you base your tax paying this year on your taxes owed last year, and if your income is relatively similar to what it was last year, you will be paying basically enough. You'll be paying something more or less in line with what you actually owe. You're still going to have to file a tax return next year. You will still have to reconcile the estimate versus the actual. And that's fine. That's why we file a tax return. That's the whole purpose of it. Okay? But that will avoid penalties and interest. That will get you on the right side of the law. Not only that, every dollar you pay towards your 2026 taxes is a dollar you don't owe next year at April 15th. if you want to hear, remind yourself how bad that cash crisis can be, go listen to last week's episode of the Sunlight Tax Podcast because I talked about it. It is an issue I see over and over and over again. And having that cash crunch is the reason a lot of self-employed people fail to fund their retirement accounts and take advantage of huge savings available to you because you just run out of cash. You don't have the money to put in when you're behind on your taxes. So this is something to help you not get behind on your taxes. Okay. I hope that feels really supportive and good to you. It's not that hard. Okay. So what do? There's an alternative way to do this. So paying based on last year's tax, line 24 of last year's tax return, that's a really easy way to go, right? That has the least amount of math and the least amount of record keeping. And you can do that method if you don't do regular bookkeeping, if you don't know what your profit is. It's a really easy baseline. But I will tell you this, if your income is not the same one year to the next, doing your taxes, paying your estimated quarterly taxes this way is not going to work as well, okay? Think about it. If I earned $100,000 last year and let's say I owed $16,000, that would be $4,000 per quarter, right? Okay, great. So if I'm making around the same amount, around $100,000 this year, and I pay $4,000 each quarter, I'll be probably fine. I'm still going to have to file a tax return and reconcile because there may be some tax credits I'm eligible for or no longer eligible for. There's other stuff that I will have to factor into my taxes, but I'll be close enough. And that's the point. We call them estimated quarterly taxes for a reason. They are estimates, okay? The point is just to get close, not to be precise, because nobody has a crystal ball. The problem is when you don't make anything like what you made last year. What if last year was decent, but now you're finding that you have fewer clients this year? What if last year you made $100,000, owed $16,000 in tax, but this year you're making $60,000, right? What if you've taken a big hit to your income? Well, you're not going to owe that same tax every quarter. Your taxes are going to go down. So paying based on last year's tax is going to mean that all year long, you're going to be really struggling with your cash flow as you make these tax payments that are frankly larger than what you're going to owe. You don't want to do that. You want to have cash in your business to operate your business, to make investments in your business, to do the advertising, to bring in the clients that you need, right? This is important for you building and growing that business, for you protecting that business. So the more accurately you pay your quarterly taxes, the more cash you get to keep in your business bank account. And that really is something you care about when you're running a small business. So what's the other way to pay quarterly taxes that accounts for this? You can do the method of basing your quarterly tax payment on your bookkeeping. All right. You want to maintain a minimum standard of doing bookkeeping at least every quarter before the tax deadline. By the way, to review, April 15th, June 15th, September 15th, and January 15th. Those are the tax deadlines. So you want to do your bookkeeping before each of those dates and do a calculation of what tax you owe based on your profit, right? Doing that is going to make your tax payments track much more closely to the actual amount that you earned for the quarter and therefore keep the cash flow nice and steady, right? In a quarter where you make a lot of money, you might have a bigger tax payment. In a quarter that's really lean and you're struggling and you really need that cash, this is even more important because that's a time you don't have as much money and you can make a lower tax payment. Okay. So this is so important to your financial health in your small business. And I know a lot of you are really feeling this right now, which is why I want to put some emphasis on it because there is a solution. Okay. All right. Doing your tax payments this way, based on your quarterly bookkeeping, is something everyone can do. There are some little details to be aware of, but it's something that is accessible to you. It's something that can be really helpful. It's trickier, but it's more accurate. And this is why I do a workshop every quarter with the people in my program to help them remember like how to make this calculation and how to actually make that payment, right? That's something that I think a lot of people want a little extra support on. Okay. Frankly, this is the hard part of running a small business. This is the part where most people need the most hand-holding, right? So I am an example of a person whose income has been down this year. I've talked to a lot of other business owners. It's not just me. I know a lot of business owners running businesses similar to mine, people in coaching, online education, running huge membership programs. A lot of people I've been talking to saw a pretty big fall off in January, right? I'm not actually sure exactly. I have some theories, but I'm not exactly sure why January was such a big downturn for us, but it was. And so my income is down substantially, and you can be sure that my first quarterly tax payment for 2026 is going to be lower than a quarter of my 2025 taxes, right? I wish it wasn't so, but I'm also really grateful to know how to make that payment so that I can keep more of that cash in my account right now because I'm feeling a need to preserve my cash. Okay. Now, when you know your profit, when you've done that bookkeeping, you're going to have to take that profit number, you're going to have to multiply it by your self-employment tax rate, 15.3%. And that's overestimating it a little bit because part of that is actually deductible. But I wouldn't even worry about that. I like to overestimate just a hair to stay overpaid on my taxes, but not by too much, right? So you want to multiply it by your self-employment tax rate and by your estimated federal income tax rate. Now, you're not going to know your federal income tax rate until next year because that rate is based on the total income you earn for the year, right? So that is the hard one to do. It's hard to figure out what that number is. You can use last year's number. There's different ways to make a guess about what your federal income tax rate is, but you want to apply that. And then those two payments, self-employment tax and federal income tax, those payments go to the IRS. You make that payment at irs.gov. And if you want to look at my super boring 4-minute video on my YouTube channel at Sunlight Tax on YouTube, I have a video that walks you through how to make that payment. For your state income tax, don't forget that your state may, and probably does, require you to pay quarterly taxes as well. So you're going to have to go to your state Department of Revenue, Department of Franchise Tax Board, and make your payment at the state level as well. And that, of course, will be based on your state income tax rate. Okay, so that's how you make the payment for the quarter based on bookkeeping, not based on a quarter of last year's tax. But it's fine to base it on a quarter of last year's tax. That is absolutely fine as well. Okay, I want you to remember that making this payment is a prepayment of your taxes for this year, meaning every single dollar you pay towards your taxes in the form of a quarterly tax payment is a dollar you don't owe next April 15th. You are taking care of business. You are taking care of your taxes as you go, as the law requires, and you're preventing penalties and interest from building up. It is so healthy for you to do this in your business. And I just want to give you a warm hug and a high five for doing it. Okay. All right. If you are interested in a little more support, if you want to join me for that quarterly tax workshop that I do every quarter, I have one on April 13th. Founding level sponsors of my new Substack get access to those quarterly sessions, plus a workshop every month at a massive discount. So if you're interested in that, definitely check out my brand new Substack launching today. Substack.com/@sunlighttax. Founding level people, you will get an invitation. When you join as a founding level member of my Substack, you will get invited to that April 13th quarterly tax workshop. But whether you join there, whether you are a member of my bootcamp program who joined within the last year, you get access to everything, all the workshops, all the quarterly sessions, all the bookkeeping, plus my, course system and tools. Whatever level that I can support you at, I'm happy to, right? If you're just using this podcast, if you just want to be a free subscriber to my Substack, that's all great. I'm happy to support you where you're at today. I know everybody is working at different levels of ability and income right now. So let me be supportive to you. If you have questions about this, reach out to me. You can send me a message, a DM on Instagram @sunlighttax, or send me a message over on Substack. happy to hear from you there. I'm still kind of figuring it out. I'm going to be totally honest. We'll see. But I'm excited to hear from you and see what you think of that Substack as well. My final reminder to you as you work on that quarterly tax payment, as you get your head around making that first quarterly tax payment for 2026, I want you to keep in mind that taxes are not built for perfect beings. Taxes are for humans, right? And there is estimation and adjustment built into the system. So I know that it's really easy to let that perfectionist side of your mind take over here and get really worried and wrapped up about making that quarterly tax payment, feeling like you're not doing it right and like that makes you a total failure. And I want to be here to say, no, you're doing great. You are a human. This is an estimate. Your purpose here is to reduce the tax bill you owe next year and to stay roughly on top of your 2026 taxes. And if you make a payment this quarter, that is what you're doing. So congratulations. Feel good about what you're doing. If I can support you more, please check out my Substack. Send me a message. Let me know how I can support you. And I'm so happy to. Good job making this payment. And let me know how it goes. I'll see you next week. Bye, everyone. Thank you for listening. If you like the show, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend. It really helps. I'm so grateful. My tax guide, Taxes for Humans, is available wherever you buy books and at sunlighttax.com/book. This podcast is for education and entertainment only. Nothing in this episode should be taken as individual tax or financial advice. You can find all the tools, books, and links I reference at sunlighttax.com/podcast.